Warning, this episode contains strong language or mature themes. Parental discretion is advised.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Alright.
Cool.
Welcome to This Podcast Is Uncalled For.
What's uncalled for about it?
Well, you can't tell anybody this.
I'm listening.
Oh my God, what are you doing? I worship Cthulhu just for the free beer.
Eggs are cheap and so are pancakes.
But you didn't even give a chance for a wild card spot.
What are we doing with Tijuana?
And you're like, what did you just say?
It's the exact sound I make when
That is uncalled for, Michael.
Well, the name of this podcast is Stuff Uncalled For?
This podcast is uncalled for.
Podcast, alright.
Yeah, that was the most ridiculous ending to that game that I've ever seen.
Oh my gosh, I gotta hurry up. Oh my gosh, I gotta hurry up. Oh my gosh, I gotta hurry up.
We're looking at each other in the eye. We're not going to say anything derogatory to the other person. And, of course, neither of us is drunk.
So I don't hear Pope Francis saying that he's a prophet, seer, and revelator.
What planet are these people on?
And the Lord take you back from.
See, this is a disgrace.
How'd that happen, really?
And it's got Chick-fil-A.
Don't think. I don't allow you to think.
Hey, we're getting somewhere.
And now, your host for this podcast, Mike Chernevsky.
Fuji! Welcome to the podcast, and welcome to another Thoughts episode. So, today's thoughts are about new states. At the time of this recording, there are 50 states in the United States with very strong efforts to get at least two more states in the very near future, namely the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico. I doubt anyone in Congress actually listens to this podcast, but if you do, for the love of God, please make D.C. and Puerto Rico states already. Alright? There's no reason for vast numbers of American citizens to not have representation in Congress. But why stop there? There have been movements throughout American history to break up existing states, and some of them do make sense. I'll give a couple of examples. I think it'd probably be a good idea for Michigan to lose its Upper Peninsula, make that new states. I think breaking Texas, which, by the way, this is what they're referring to in the Texas Constitution. Texas has the ability to break into up to 5 states without needing congressional approval. So, yeah, do that. Get at least a couple blue states out of the thing, because South Texas along the Rio Grande, that's very blue, and as are the cities. I assume one of these would just be the city of Austin. And there have been plans to break up California into a bunch of states, one of which would they consider themselves a de facto state now, the state of Jefferson in the extreme north parts. You had the Baja, Arizona, which basically you're breaking off Tucson from the rest of the state of Arizona. And quite a few other movements, including a couple of other states. Ideas like breaking Chicago off from the rest of Illinois, and New York City from the rest of New York. here's one that hasn't been discussed in a great detail, if at all. But I think if we're going to make city-states, this one is quite logical. And that is something I'm going to call the Free State of Kansas City. Now, as we've discussed on this podcast already, Kansas City metropolitan area sits fairly equally between two states, Kansas and Missouri. And as a result, there are a lot of issues that are unique to our metropolitan area. From businesses moving back and forth across the state line to take advantage of tax credits and stuff, and noticeable differences. Like, for example, go to a Walgreens in Missouri. Right there on the shelves, you can buy wines and spirits, no problem. Cross over to the Kansas side, no such luck. Another good example, Missouri recently legalized medicinal marijuana. Kansas, no such luck. And a few other issues, but you sort of get the point. So, here's my proposal. And this will affect both Kansas and Missouri. At a bare minimum, I'm talking 5 counties. Johnson and Wyandotte from Kansas. Jackson, Platte, and Clay counties from Missouri. You could probably tack on a couple of other counties, namely Leavenworth County, Kansas, and Cass County, Missouri. These counties would break off from both states and form a new state, which again, for our purposes, I'm calling the Free State of Kansas City, but you could call it anything you like. I think the state of Truman would be a good one, because Harry Truman was from the Kansas City area. We still allow the cities and counties to operate as they do, just under a new jurisdiction. The capital state, obviously Kansas City, makes sense for a capital city. And there are going to be some logistical things like for example, my college alma mater can't really call himself the University of Missouri, Kansas City anymore, because, well, you're no longer in Missouri. Just as an example of a name that would have to change. And then you bring in a new mishmash of laws. I already mentioned alcohol and marijuana so far. Another thing that I could see happening, something that Kansas does pretty well, but not Missouri, and that's early voting. In Kansas, you can apply to vote early by mail, or they set up polling places early. Something that does not happen in the Show Me States. So that's an idea of a good idea that could come from Kansas to this new state. And we can start addressing some of these issues that really do affect our county, like our community, like wealth inequities. And yes, that's a real thing. Go east to Truce, you'll see exactly what I mean. And all sorts of things like regional transits. We do have the streetcar, but it's still very limited. And even after it's expanded, it's still fairly limited, going up and down main streets between the River Market and the UMKC campus. Right now it's up and down main streets, stopping right at Grand Center Union Station. You get the idea, it's just one line. We need to do better, especially with everything as far-flung as it is. That's another way I think getting everything into one singular state makes a whole lot of sense. But that's not all for the two states in question. There's plenty more that can be done. We're talking about ideas of breaking states up. Well, that was at one point a idea of breaking off basically the southwestern corner of the state and forming the new state of West Kansas. That could be revisited. I know with this whole northern Colorado thing recently, they were talking about getting a couple of Kansas counties to participate in that. I, for one, think the Wichita area should be kicked out of the state because, let's face it, a lot of the bad ideas that Topeka is giving us right now, a lot of it comes from fucking Wichita. And one guy in particular, well, formerly two, but one of them died, and there's only one asshole left. Goes by the name of Charles Koch. So that would need to happen. On the Missouri side of things, well, there's also talk of spinning St. Louis into a separate state, and let's be clear about Jefferson City. It is pretty much Kansas City people argue St. Louis has too much influence. St. Louis people think likewise. But really, it's the whole center of the state. If you want to know why Missouri has shifted so far to the right on the state and national level, it's because of the rural stuff going on in that state. Not so much St. Louis and not so much KC. So if they want to continue this rightward lurching, then maybe it would be a good idea to spin both cities off into separate states. And there are probably a whole lot of other ideas. That's just my idea. One I think would benefit our metropolitan area in the long term. But I'm interested in hearing what you think. So if you're listening on the podcast and you're happy to be following our Facebook page, when you get to this episode, just post your comments. And I may be setting up a Google Voice, or whatever the Google voice messaging service is called. I'll get that set up and we'll go from there. So, all that being said, have a great day and we'll talk to you next time.
This podcast is Uncalled For is hosted, produced and edited by Mike Chernevsky. Opening music is Fantasia by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. Licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license. Outro music for this episode is Slumkando by Kai Engel, licensed under a Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license. Please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast through your favorite podcasting platform. Like our Facebook page at facebook.com/uncalledforpodcast, and check out our blog with show notes at uncalledfor.home.blog. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you next time.